Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Canadian Shield, your trusted news source. My name's Sterling. I'm your host. As I had suspected, Jagmeet Singh launched his prime ministerial campaign from Southern Ontario. Many of the seats that the Liberals possess are in Southern Ontario, and they all are up for grabs because the horrendous things that the Liberal Party have done to Canada and Toronto proper. Of course, Jagmeet Singh didn't come up first. He announced two NDP candidates for two regions in Toronto. One is Danforth and one is Spadina. And then he made a big show about coming out from behind the curtain and just more theater that you suspect that you're used to from the far left. And remember that he's up here now trying to convince you that it's all the decisions that he made in supporting of the Liberal Party and all the decisions and choices that he made supporting Justin Trudeau were all Justin Trudeau's fault. They weren't his fault at all. Now, before I get into it, I would encourage you to like, comment, and subscribe on this video. I would encourage you to hit the notification bell for this channel. I'm up against a lot of censorship. All right, so there must have been a dozen questions asked of Jagmeet Singh today, and they were all basically the same thing, which I had warned you would happen. They're all like, if you're not going to support the supply and confidence, are you going to call an election? Are you going to support the motion forward on the election? And he said the same answer over and over and over again. Only one reporter pushed back on him, and I'll show you that segment. But first, I just want to open to give you an idea of how many times he said the same thing over and over again. So just have a listen to this.
We have ripped up the agreement with Justin Trudeau.
And so I've ripped up the supply and confidence agreement with Justin Trudeau. So we decided to rip up the agreement. Well, as I said, I've ripped up the agreement with Justin Trudeau, but we have I've ripped up the agreement with Justin Trudeau. But because I ripped up the agreement with Justin Trudeau, I know this now means that an election timing has become more uncertain. We have ripped up the agreement with Justin Trudeau. The agreement is done. We've ripped it up. Well, we've ripped up the agreement with Justin Trudeau. That speaks for itself. I've ripped up the agreement. I am absolutely aware that ripping up the agreement with Justin Trudeau means an election is more likely. We have absolutely ripped up the agreement with Justin Trudeau. And then ripped up the agreement. We have ripped up this agreement.
I'm telling you, I did not reuse any of them. I pulled that out of this press conference today, one at a time. And there's one more where he got in a confrontation with, or not a confrontation, but he was confronted by Brian Lilly from, I think, the Toronto Sun. And this was the only reporter that pushed back on him. But I'll just let you hear that, and then I'll tell you something that would just shock you.
Means an election is more likely.
Clear. That's not clear. You're
and an election.
But can we get an answer?
That's a choice that Canadians will have to make.
Can we get an answer?
I will look at any vote that comes before us, and we will make a decision.
So you see, every time he said we tore up that agreement, he would also say, oh, well, I'm going to look at every vote that comes forward. So he would not commit to the first attempt at a no confidence vote from the Conservative Party. He refused. He was like, oh, well, we'll have to look at it at the merit of it every time. But if you're looking at the merit of it right now, then why would the merit all of a sudden be different when you're in the House of Commons in the moment? Because like I told you, he's going to try to time it for when it's best for him, not for Canadians. He does not care about Canadians. He cares. He said the word for every time you heard that we ripped up the agreement, which was what, a dozen. He also said corporate greed. I mean, it was it was just ridiculous. Like, I could have played the one answer for any of the dozen questions that he was asked. All he keeps saying over and over again was, we ripped up the agreement, corporate greed, conservatives bad, next. And it was kind of, except for Brian Lilly there, nobody else even bothered him. They just all went, oh, okay. Which I think is kind of telling. I don't believe that he has anything other than that. I think his whole entire approach is going to be that he just wants everybody to realize that he's no longer buddy-buddy with Justin Trudeau's political party. And yet, because he won't commit to a no confidence motion, which if he was smart, he would introduce, right? He would take the first shot he got and come into the House of Commons and say, I am introducing a no confidence motion. Will anybody vote for me? Because that at least might give him a little bit of credibility back. Though I honestly believe that if the NDP wants any credibility at all, they should have a leadership run. But there's so few of them in federal politics that maybe they don't feel like they have anybody that will also make any kind of a showing. Right? They might believe that if they just hold on, they will become the official opposition. It's entirely possible that the official opposition will be, 20 seats. That's a possibility. I mean, it's not likely, but it's the kind of thing that could happen. That's why he's, even though he knows that British Columbia is crumbling down around him, and what holding that they did have in Alberta is also gone by the wayside with that fiasco with the water. He's hoping that he can swing people from the socialist to the socialist in Southern Ontario. Like they'll say, well, we don't want to vote for the Liberals anymore, so we'll vote for the NDP, which is basically just voting for the same, the same policies, the same ideas, and the same approach to mismanaging the budget and throwing all kinds of money at things that nobody wants, to make sure that nobody has to be accountable for any of their budgetary expenditures. This is why you have to be careful what the platform is, but he wouldn't commit to any kind of a platform. All he said over and over and over and over again was, oh, this election will be a choice between the NDP, who's going to fight corporate greed, and the Conservatives, who are going to give corporate greed to all of their buddies, or corporate money to all their corporate buddies. And it's like, you have nothing that he said could be substantiated. There was no proof in anything that he couldn't say, well, do you remember when XYZ? We can say, do you remember when Jagmeet Singh got into a deal with the Justin Trudeau Liberals, and the country has been running constantly and steadily downhill, that debts are so high that our great-great-grandchildren might still be paying these bills? Those things we can say, but it doesn't seem to occur to him. He just wants to ignore all of that, right? He didn't even try to come out to address it. You heard him. I ripped up the agreement, and then he would move on to talk about how Canadians have a decision, and it's all about me and Pierre Poilievre. Is that really a choice? I don't think so. He did, however, say a couple of things of note that, other than that, though they were few and far between. So I just want you to hear a couple of them, because they're kind of important.
Of Justin Trudeau and the Liberals simply being too weak, too selfish.
Yeah, because when I look at Jagmeet Singh, what I think of is a guy who's making all kinds of sacrifices for people. He's being so selfless. He was so selfless that he entered into an agreement with the Liberal Party that stopped how many no confidence motions and have put Canadians in such dire straits. That's how different he is from Justin Trudeau. Oh wait, no, that's not different at all. Now this next one is something that I completely and totally disagree with, and I'll let you hear it before I tell you what I mean.
Where Pierre Poilievre throws fuel on the fire of corporate greed.
First of all, everybody remembers the Conservative saying throws fuel on the fire, the inflationary fire, and that Jagmeet Singh was helping them up. I mean, I didn't go and get clips from the House of Commons, but I absolutely could find clips of Pierre Poilievre saying fuel on the inflationary fire. He said it all kinds of times. So Jagmeet Singh taking it and trying to switch it over to corporate greed, which doesn't even make any sense. Fuel on the fire of corporate greed is one of the most ridiculous statements I've ever heard. However, the fact that he takes that line from Pierre Poilievre, that makes him a hack. And who can respect a hack? You might as well call it plagiarism. I mean, you can't take somebody else's material and try to pawn it off on your own and gain any respect from a person like me or anyone from my generation, for that matter. You can't do that. You have to, be original or make an acknowledgement. That's where you got the information from. I mean, that's how it works. But he doesn't seem to. See, that's a problem, right? He doesn't even seem to care like that. How blatantly, transparently contradictory he's being. It just doesn't even seem to bother him at all. Which, where I come from, they call it believe in your own BS. One reporter came ready to talk to him about other issues, though. He figured I would imagine that he figured he got the information on the other answers from all the other reporters, but he asked him specifically about Hamilton and how Hamilton has been run by the NDP for quite a while, and that many of the business owners have stated that personally and out loud in the public that they're afraid to walk around in their neighborhood, that there's a lot of gun violence, that there's a lot of violence, that there's a lot of, degradation of the neighborhood and basically the collapse of civil society. And rather than address the problem head on or give you some idea of how he's going to stop the crime, like Pierre Poilievre will say, This is the answer that he gave. He gave a long-winded answer, full of platitudes, but this part is the significant part right here.
We also need to look at some of the roots of violence and address those with whatever the best evidence is to keep communities safe. We need to use experts' advice.
We need to use experts' advice to look at the root of violence. That sounds remarkably similar to the woke programs that have been flying all over this and destroying neighborhoods all over this country. That sounds exactly like the type of thing they would say right before they prop up a tent city. That sounds like exactly the thing they say to themselves right before they use taxpayer dollars to buy hard narcotics and give those narcotics out for free. That sounds like exactly the same woke ideology that got us into this mess. And he said it right without any problem, without batting an eyelash. So I agree with him on one thing. I agree that this election is boiling down to something between two polar opposites. Do you want all of your money going to social programs that do not help you or your family? Do you want your tax dollars paid to foreign governments? Or do you want to keep more of your money in your own pocket to decide how and where and when you spend it? Now, I'm sure I'll get plenty of opportunity to explain to you the differences in the social programs. This was this guy's prime ministerial campaign launch. And he repeated himself, I don't know, a dozen times, had one pushback from a reporter and then told another reporter that he's going to take somebody else's advice on how to solve the crime problem for the business owners and the law-abiding residents of Hamilton. I don't see any difference between what he's saying and what governments that are currently voted into office are saying. Do you see any difference? You can let me know down in the comment if you hear any difference. Either way, I'm going to wrap here. I want to thank you all for listening. Give this video a thumbs up. I'll talk to you next time.